Hello everyone. On today's podcast episode, I'm going to talk about, the duality of impossible and possible and how that works. In life, nothing is truly impossible. Nothing is actually truly impossible. And that's how things work. So let me explain to you what I mean. If you've listened to my podcast before, you hear me talking about duality, left and right are equal and opposites. You know, before and after are equal and opposites. Positive and negative. These are the examples of duality. Fast and slow, yes and no, up and down, large and small, long and short, cause and effect, light and darkness. You know, and when you see light and darkness, duality works in that both positive and negatives are two sides of the same coin. And between positive, there's negative. Within negative, there's positive. As in, you can't really tell what's positive and what's negative. If you go from negative to positive, right? If you go from a negative side of a magnet towards the positive side, right? Every step of the way, you'll be negative. You will never know when the positive starts, where the positive side starts. If you go from the negative side of a magnet towards the positive end, you'll never know when the positive end starts. And this is truth. This is one of the weird things that scientists have figured out about magnets is that when you go from a positive end of a magnet towards the negative end, you'll never know when the negative end starts, and vice versa. When you go from the negative end of a magnet towards the positive end, you'll never know when the negative end starts or ends. So positive and negatives are pretty much placebo, or is based off perspective. If you go from a negative end of a magnet towards the positive end, there are time you'll always be at the negative end. You'll never see yourself arrive at a positive end. It's only in hindsight. It's only when you look from a different perspective would you finally realize that you just went from the negative end to the positive end. While you're walking from the negative end to the positive end, you'll never be able to tell that you're going towards the positive end. It will still be negative from your point of view. Just like, when you go from old to young, from young to old, right? The duality is young and old, right? When you're growing from young to old, your mind isn't capable of realizing that you're getting older. But in hindsight, you finally realize that, hey, I'm getting older. You only realize you're getting older when you look in the mirror. Otherwise, if there's no mirror, there's no way for you to tell that you're getting older. The older you will never be able to tell that you're getting older as you age. And that's how life works. When you go from one end of duality to the other end, you're not able to tell. You'll never be able to tell that you're moving towards the other end, because one end will always appear as if it's the other end. So when you go from positive to negative, you'll never be able to tell that you're going towards a negative end. When you go from hot to cold, you'll never be able to tell you're going towards cold, because everything will always feel the same. It's only through hindsight or through, let's just say, relativity. You're only cold relative to something else. So the positive end of the magnet is only positive relative to the negative end. The negative end of a magnet is only negative relative to the positive end. It's like the theory of relativity. It's only when something is relative to something else, that's when you see the changes in them. Something is only moving relative to something that's moving slow or something that's not moving at all. Something is only standing still relative to something that's moving. If nothing is moving, then everything is standing still and also moving at the same time. You'll never be able to tell whether you're moving or not. If everything is standing still, then everything is moving. If everything is moving at the same speed, If everything moves at the same speed towards the same direction, then you won't be able to tell that you're moving. You think you're standing still. And that's one of the things that, you experience in life is that it's not a lie. If everything moves in the same direction at the same speed, towards the same direction, right? Guess what? That's exactly the same as standing still. There's no movement at all. Movement only occurs when there's something that's standing still and something moves, or when there's a difference in movement. So that applies to positive. That applies to possible as well. Impossible and possible are two sides of the same coin or two sides of the same magnet. When you move from possible to impossible, everything will always appear possible in your eyes. But when you get to the impossible side, that's when you start to realize that what I just, what I did, where I'm at right now, was once impossible in the eyes of others. And let me give you an example. Cars, planes, light bulbs, phones, astronauts, and all these electronic devices that we have today were once impossible in the eyes of our ancestors. What we see as possible today was impossible in the past. What we now see as possible, this cell phone that I'm using to record this, audio, was an impossibility in the past. This was fairy tale. If you told your ancestors that these things were possible, they will mock you for being a fool. You'll be insulted for being a fool. If you carry your cell phone, if you go to the past and tell your family members, we used to, in the future we'll fly in planes, we'll have cell phones where we can communicate with each other from far distances. We can record voices and then replay them in the future anytime we want. We can record videos of ourselves and then replay them in the future anytime we want. We can go to the moon. We can go to Mars. We can go to all these places. We can see far distances in the universe. And the earth is round, not flat. All the discoveries that we have today, all the technology that we have today was once impossible in the past. If you go to the past right now and talk about all these things, your ancestors will think you're talking about a fairy tale. They'll think you're making things up. Why? Because it's impossible in their eyes, from their worldview. What we experience today is impossible. And that's how possibilities and impossibilities work. What we consider impossible isn't impossible. It's possible. What we consider possible is also impossible. From one point of view, it's impossible. From another point of view, it's possible. And that's how duality works. They're two sides of the same coin and they come together. The only way we can tell the difference between one and the other is through perspective. When you're moving fast, something that's moving slower than you appears to be standing still, does it not? Drive on the highway, right? The cars that move slower than you on the highway do not appear to be moving at all. They appear to be standing still. So are they really moving or are they standing still? From your perspective, they'll be standing still. But from their perspective, they're the one that's moving. You're the one that's standing still. You're coming towards them. From one perspective, when you drive towards them, it's not you driving towards them. It's them moving towards you. You see how duality works? Color. From one perspective, color is the differences, is light, is differences in light, right? Is the different shades of light. From another perspective, color is the different shades of darkness. From one's perspective, color, are different shades of light, different frequencies of light. When in a different perspective, color are different frequencies of darkness. Something only moves relative to something else. And something only stands still relative to something else. That's how life works. So what we consider impossible, like all these fairy tales that we think are impossible, they're only impossible because we don't have a way to get to them. Just like of a plane or a phone, these things are only possible for your ancestors because they don't have a way to create those things. If they don't have a way to create them, it'll always be impossible for them. But as long as they slowly make their way towards what is called impossible, for example, if you have a goal to go to build some sort of sci-fi world, right? Like the Harry Potter world, right? It is only impossible because the Harry Potter world is so far advanced, it's so complicated, we don't even know how to get there, right? But it doesn't mean it's not possible to create it. In order to create it, we have to make steps. And the coolest part of possible and impossible is that every step that we walk, every step of the way, everything will appear possible. But yet the impossible will always still look impossible. We'll slowly make our ways towards what we call impossible until what we believe is impossible becomes possible. That's how discoveries work. That's how, society advances. Hover cars and all these things were once considered impossible. But slowly but surely, society advances towards what we consider impossible. Every step of the way that as society gets more and more advanced, right? Every step of the way, we think what we're doing is possible, right? Without realizing we're walking slowly, we're slowly moving towards what we once considered impossible. What we consider impossible today, 20 years from now, 1,000 years from now, may become perfectly possible. Because when you walk towards the impossibility, every step of the way appears to be possible. Only when you take small steps. You can't just go from positive to negative without, in one large loop, in one large leap. You go gradually, and every gradual step appears possible. We slowly walk from possible to impossible without realizing that we're going towards impossible. Because every step of the way will appear possible in our eyes. The things we have now were once impossible. Yet every step of the way, we never thought it was impossible. The people that created this technology, they never thought it was impossible. Otherwise, they wouldn't have created it. If they didn't think it was possible to create it, they wouldn't have been able to create it. That's how life works. As long as you believe something is possible, slowly but surely you slowly walk towards that direction. You figure out a way to make it possible. But the moment you give up and believe that it is impossible, then the problem is you. There's nothing in this world is impossible. Everything is possible. Even the greatest, most fictitious tales in this world is possible. But it's only possible if you believe it is possible. You walk, once if you believe it's possible, that's when you start making steps towards it. You start to try to figure out a way to make it work. Once you believe a cell phone is possible, you start to figure out a way to make it work. You try to figure out a way to create it. But the moment you believe it's impossible, you never try. You give up immediately. And that's why, that's what separates the winners in life, the creators in life, the inventors in life, and the great discoverers in life from the losers that, never get it, never go far in life. The losers who never go far in life always believe everything is impossible. And that belief limits their power. That belief limits their future. If you believe something is impossible for you, it'll only be impossible for you, no one else. That's how life works. If you believe something is possible, you try every way possible to create it. And yes, there are ways to create these things. You have to find a way to create it. And there are ways to create it. And every step of the way, you'll find that, little by little, the small steps you make will slowly move you towards what we once considered impossible. You slowly make possible steps towards it until finally you arrive at what we once considered impossible. A car. A car was once considered impossible. Electric cars was once considered impossible. Holographic um, displays and videos were once considered impossible. Landing on the moon was once considered impossible. The universe was once considered an impossible place to be. They didn't even think, the universe even existed. In the past, we didn't even think the universe existed. It was because someone thought it was possible that maybe we lived in the universe. That's why they figured it out. Because someone thought it was possible that we may not be living in a flat Earth, but a round Earth. That's when they started figuring it out. The moment you shift your mind from everything is impossible to everything is possible, you can start, you can finally start making steps, possible steps towards impossibility. But if you never think something is possible, it'll always be impossible for you. But it'll only be impossible for you and you alone, no one else. So do not limit your mind. Do not limit your future by thinking that things are impossible. They are not. Everything in this world is possible. Even the impossible, even the impossible. And everything in this world is impossible for a jaded and closed-minded person. If you have a negative mindset, then everything in this world is impossible. But if you have a positive mindset, a real, logical mindset, the mindset of someone who isn't jaded, who isn't mentally unstable, or any sort of mental problems, you finally start to realize the world is filled with possibilities. Nothing is impossible. We can go to Mars. We can live on Mars. Even on the planets that we think we were incapable of living in, those gas planets, we can live there. All we need to do is build a strong enough pod, to handle the atmosphere in there, and we can live there. We can live on anywhere on this planet, even on the sun. We just have to figure out a way to live on the sun. What we consider impossible today will be possible tomorrow. What your ancestors considered impossible years ago is what we experience on a daily basis today. Skyscrapers, cars, planes, phones, shoes, glowing shoes, glasses, microscopes, telescopes, all these things that we have on a daily basis, that we use on a daily basis without even thinking about it. Electricity, all the basic necessities that we have, the things we experience on a daily basis. These things were impossible in the past. So how come we created it? How come? Well, the reason why we created it because some people, not you, if you're the person who always think that everything is impossible, well, there are people in this world who has the equal and opposite mindset than you do, and these are the people that created everything that you experience right now. These are the people that created it. People who believed that all the impossibles in this world are actually possible. They are the ones who create our future. The ones who think everything is impossible never go far in life. They never do anything but, smoke, do drugs, and die somewhere. Maybe have a few kids, beat them, beat their wives, beat their kids, get so frustrated in life because everything is impossible. When you believe everything is impossible, your life is just filled with misery. You'll never be happy because, you feel trapped. Nothing's, we can't do anything in life. Everything is impossible. You start taking your anger out on your family members, your kids, your wife, or your husband, your parents. You just beat everyone, scream, yell, and just be a negative, violent person in your own little world, because your mind trapped you in your own little square, and you can't get out. Your own mindset created your own hell. Your negative mindset that nothing is possible created your own nightmare, a nightmare-like life for you to live in. You made your life a living hell because you keep believing that everything is impossible. While the people that believe that everything is possible are slowly making steps, possible steps towards the impossible. While you're here thinking it's impossible, they're slowly making possible steps towards what you once, believed was impossible. And every step of the way, you'll never see them go towards the impossibility. Even when they get there, it's only in hindsight that you'll start to realize that, oh, wow, I once thought this was impossible. How come we got to here when what I thought was impossible is something that someone is doing right now. What I thought was impossible is something that someone is experiencing right now. So was I wrong? Yes, you were wrong. Stop believing that things are impossible. Start changing your future. Start taking control over your life. Stop being a negative, demented person and start changing your life for the better. Nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. That's it for today's podcast episode. Be a more positive person. Believe in yourself. Nothing is impossible for you. Believe in yourself. You have value. You have inherent value. No one thinks you're worthless. God does not think you're worthless. You're not a worthless person. Otherwise, you won't be here. You will not be here if you're a worthless person. You have value. See the value in yourself. See the truth. See the real truth. And slowly but surely, your life will change. You will change your life. With the help of God, you will change your life. Once you believe in yourself, God will help you. God helps those who help themselves. You'll be helped by God the moment you start believing you have value. The moment you start believing yourself, God will help you far more than you can possibly imagine. Never give up on yourself. The world will change for you. The world will change for you. As you continue moving in life, the world will change for you. So that's it for today's podcast episode. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.